from the Supreme Court. Back to you, Colin.
Adam, thanks very much indeed. Good afternoon from a New Look studio remodelled just for today as we reveal the findings of a worrying study into the impact of plastic pollution. Every day, millions of bottles like these end up in our oceans, and scientists say it could be getting into our food chain. In a moment, we'll have details of a new campaign being launched today by Sky News, and we'll hear the views of Prince Charles. But first, we join Neil Patterson, who's on the beach at Weston-super-Mare. Neil.
We're here on Sandmay, just a short distance away from Weston-super-Mare, where it's pretty clear that there is a problem washing up on Britain's beaches as well. I think with environmental campaigns such as this, you can sometimes be, perhaps a little bit of pushback. We have improved the amount that we recycle here in the United Kingdom tremendously. We are all that much more aware of the need to put plastics in the appropriate bin. And of course, when you look at the statistics, there's an awful lot there that will overwhelm you. The fact is that, a bin lorry full of plastics is deposited into the world's oceans every single minute. At the moment, there are roughly 700 tonnes worth of microbeads contained in those beauty products and elsewhere that are going into our oceans from the UK alone. So what can one person do? Well, look, our science correspondent Thomas Moore has been taking a look at why Sky News is throwing its weight behind this campaign to reduce plastics in our oceans.
The exact problem of plastic in ocean is this. Now you come to the plastic graveyard here in the ocean.
The washed up remains of a throwaway society.
Now you see the enormity of the problem.
This isn't litter that's been dropped on the beach. It's come in from the sea, recklessly thrown away, distributed on the currents, and then swept ashore.
This is the most dangerous, the blue one. It's a single-use plastic. And this, if it gets down, you had it. This is all in the mall. This is from the mall.
From the shopping mall.
Shopping mall. This is so prevalent in Indian shopping mall.
Afros inspired the world's biggest ever beach clean. Once a week, volunteers clear what they can, knowing full well that the next tide will lay a new carpet of plastic.
So the ocean throws it up. Ocean pukes out every 2 months, 3 months, And if you don't clean it, it will get piled on, piled on, piled on. It's just not convenient for the fishes and the marine creatures and marine birds, It's their house. It's there where they belong. They live, they survive. They're crying for justice because we have messed up with their houses.
Worldwide, the equivalent of one rubbish truck of plastic waste is being dumped into the ocean every minute. By 2050, the trash in the sea is likely to weigh more than all of the fish.
This is the debris of modern life, almost all of it single-use plastic. A bag used for a few minutes to take the shopping home, a straw used for seconds to drink some juice, and thrown away with little regard for what happened to it, and now being brought back in on the tide.
Marine litter is a worldwide problem. This is the River Thames. Once the plastic reaches the North Sea, it'll begin to break down into tiny fragments over many decades, but it never completely disappears. The tiny pieces are called microplastic. It's eaten by sea creatures and ends up in our food.
This portion of microsols contains about 90 particles of plastic.
This scientist carried out the first comprehensive risk assessment, shown exclusively to Sky News, which suggests that the microplastic can be absorbed into our bloodstream. His research shows that by the end of the century, as many as 4,000 tiny fragments a year could build up in the body.
I've asked many physicians, colleagues, professors, and so on, what could microplastic do when it gets into our blood system? And the blunt answer was, we don't know. So we don't know, but in principle they could accumulate. What I think they could do, what was suggested by physicians, is that perhaps they could accumulate around joints or certain types of tissue and cause inflammation there.
The plastic is already proving fatal for some marine creatures.
This bird has died slowly. There's no fat remaining.
These are fulmars that have been found dead on the beach. The post-mortem on the stomach isn't for the squeamish.
There's quite a bit of stuff in here. I'm not sure what it is, but we'll see. So you can see there's a lot of plastic in here.
Goodness me.
So
It is just full of plastic.
Yeah, so this gizzard is basically full of plastic.
With so much plastic blocking its system, the bird wouldn't have felt hungry and probably starved to death.
It's suffering from our mistakes, and it's a disgrace for mankind, I think, that you find this in animals.
Cleaned and carefully laid out, this is the inventory of the bird's gizzard. 18 pieces of plastic weighing half a gram. Scaled up to a human, that's a lunchbox of trash.
I would not like my son to have this in his stomach.
Our waste, recklessly disposed of, is in the ocean food chain, and it's coming back to haunt us. Thomas Moore, Sky News.
Do you know, I think there has been a tendency on the part of some of us to ignore the problem that's on our doorstep. I grew up in a place very similar to this, a small town next to the sea, and did I give a moment's consideration to the plastic that was flowing into the ocean? Probably not, certainly not as much as the attention I may well have paid to greater polluters of our oceans. But we have a role to play in all of this. Let's talk to Charlotte Coombs, shall we, from the Marine Conservation Society, who's been with us here on Sand Beach today. And this is just some of what we have gathered this morning. I mean, how big a problem is the issue of plastic pollution in and around the UK coastline?
It's a huge problem. I mean, we are an island, so we've got sources of litter coming from not just at the sea, but from inland as well, down rivers. So no matter where you are, you can be having an effect on the sea. And most of what we find is plastic, and that's stuff that doesn't break down for hundreds and hundreds of years. So it's lasting in the sea for a really long time. And most of what we find comes from the general public. So there's something that everyone can do to really help make a difference to this problem.
The problem is, of course, that we've seen any number of environmental campaigns over the last few years, and people have, sometimes shrugged their shoulders, suggested, you know what, I do my bit, I do recycle. So how do we persuade people that perhaps they need to think a little bit more about, for example, single-issue plastics?
Well, there's a lot that we can do, but I mean, you just need to look at the carrier bag levy that was brought in 2011, and since then, not only have we seen a massive reduction in bags handed out at the checkout, we've actually seen a 20% decrease in bags found on our beaches. So everything that people do does really make a difference, and I think people just need to remember that, it's not just about using it once and throwing it away. We need to reduce, reuse, recycle, and it makes a difference.
And once we've got it into the public mindset, people are far more open to, for example, the idea of a deposit on plastic bottles. Sky data to this morning showing 60% of people would actually be in favour of something like that. What kind of impact would that have on a coastline like this?
A massive impact. I mean, a lot of the litter that we found today is related to plastic bottles, glass bottles, aluminium cans, and a deposit return system could make a huge difference in that. Like I said, most of the litter we find is from the general public, but a quarter of that is drinks related. It's plastic bottles, it's glass bottles, it's aluminium cans. So imagine if we could take that off of our beaches, that would be a huge difference.
Charlotte, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
Do you know what? It can be a little bit overwhelming at times when you consider those statistics. A bin lorry full of plastic wrappers going into the sea every minute. What can I do? What can you do? We can do quite a lot, and it doesn't have to take that much effort. Have a think about it today, and perhaps you might find your own behaviour changing just a little bit. Let's turn now, shall we, to our science correspondent, Thomas Moore, who's at a Marine Life Centre in the Netherlands, looking at the effect that plastic can have on wildlife.
Neil, and this is precisely why scientists are so concerned, because it's in the food chain and it is getting all the way up to birds. And that is why they are doing post-mortems on fulmars. They're a kind of seabird that feeds out in the open ocean, can't distinguish between plastic and food, so they end up with a lot of plastic in their stomachs. And that's typically what you would find inside one of these birds. But it's not just birds, it's other marine creatures too. So scale up the marine creature, scale up the plastic. And we've got one stunning example of a big beast, a sperm whale that was washed up on Texel, an island just offshore here in the Netherlands last winter, wasn't it, Elisa?
Yes.
And it was part of that big pod of sperm whales that some of them died and on the UK coast as well, but also Germany. And just look at what you found. You actually went and did some of the post-mortem work on that whale, and this is what you found inside the stomach. All this is plastic that you found inside.
It's all from one whale, and we have different types of plastic. This is rope. It's a longline fishery rope.
So that's fishing litter?
It's fishing litter, yes.
Right, but it's obviously been lost overboard, or it's just become cut from whatever it was attached to and just floating around in the ocean.
Yeah, and it's known that sperm whales feed on the longline fishery, so they come and snack some fish, and that they can eat the rope as well.
And then how long will something like that stay in the whale's stomach?
For a long time. It will stay there for a long time. If it
Right. And you've got other aspects too. I mean, here's some balloon ribbon. There's a lesson for anybody who lets go of one of these ribbons. They end up in the ocean and they're harming wildlife. But this is, just open this up, it just really shows you the problem. A big sheet of plastic there that was inside this whale. And here too, there's a bit of burnt plastic that this whale has consumed.
Yep.
Now, what kind of impact would all this have on something like a sperm whale?
Well, it's not good for the sperm whale to have that in the stomach. It's not an amount where it will die of, but yeah, it's definitely not good to have that in your stomach.
But it shouldn't be there at all, and
No,
that is the point, that they're
not at all.
encountering an awful lot of plastic out in the North Sea, and it really just underlines the pressure that all this is having on the ecosystem. And that is why we are joining with scientists to say that we need to do something. We need to stop all this plastic going into the oceans.
Thomas, thanks very much indeed. Well, you can't fail to miss the mess in our studio today. All of this plastic can and ought to be recycled. It will be later. But the reason it's here, just to make a point, really, a graphic point. This is how much plastic the average family uses in a 4-month-long period. One very high-profile environmentalist who agrees on the need for action is none other than the Prince of Wales. He's told Sky News why the UK should follow the lead of other countries in reducing the usage of plastics.
Any action we take to ensure a healthy ocean will dramatically help us combat climate change and its impacts. I mean, for instance, if we could think about what other countries do, like Sweden has done for the last 25 years, and Germany, I think, for the last 12 or so, and Belgium, whereby they have a deposit scheme for plastic bottles using reverse vending machines, which suck your bottle in when you put it into the machine. When they introduced this into Germany 12 or whatever it is years ago, the rubbish problem reduced by 95%. I mean, it made the whole difference. And it always seems to me extraordinary that we don't look more closely at these sorts of initiatives which could make such a dramatic difference. So all I can say is that Sky's Ocean Plastics campaign will hopefully create further awareness of this incredibly serious issue.
Prince of Wales there in conversation with our royal correspondent Rhiannon Mills. Tonight you can watch our documentary on the threat ocean plastic is causing to the environment and potentially, as Thomas Moore was explaining, to human health too. It's A Plastic Tide. It's on Sky Atlantic at 8 p.m. and tomorrow on Sky News at the same time. And you can access interactive content, videos too, on ocean plastic and the damage it's doing on the Sky News mobile app. And you can join Sophie Ridge for a Sky News Tonight special programme looking at the threat of plastics in our oceans, 8:30 this evening, including an interview with the Virgin boss, Richard Branson. And remember, you can make a difference by joining our campaign. Sign up at skyoceanrescue.com to stay in touch and share your stories with us on Twitter at Sky Ocean Rescue using the hashtag Ocean Rescue.